All Rats, continuing my new series of member best games. People in the video lessons group are submitting them, and this is a very interesting game. Threw me for a loop when I saw what happened, and I'll explain when we get there. Okay, we've all seen this position before, the Ruy Lopez, and it just follows the normal main line, no divergences yet. There will be one in just a moment. Okay, now this is the point where black decides if he's going to castle and play the marshal attack or go into main line with d6. And black plays the marshal attack, or plans the marshal attack. Okay, if you're white in this position, you're going to have to know the marshal attack. And this video is beyond the scope of studying that. However, there is a line called the anti-marshal that white employs here with a4. Okay, now, I do have a little bit of experience with this. I've played it on the white and the black side. I do remember the first time I faced it with black. I think, back in 1976. I was playing a future senior master, Jim Mackey. I was rated in probably 1800s. And he basically just ground me down. And I don't really remember that game, and that's not important. But in effect, what a4 is supposed to do is take black entirely out of the marshal. Okay, he's not able to play it, and I'm not going to sit here and show you exactly why. I'm just going to show you what happened here. Okay, now I know the move that white plays is part of the main line, but black then upsets the apple cart, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Now, what white could do here, and it's perfectly playable, is just capture the pawn on b5 and then trade the rooks. That rook on a1 is kind of a sore spot for white. Look at the white queen side, entirely undeveloped. It's going to be several moves before that rook gets into play. So just by getting rid of it, it's not a bad choice. Okay, so anyway, white plays d3, and black uncovers this interesting move. Okay, now, what's best? Well, it doesn't really matter. We're pretty much out of book. You'd have to sit down and spend hours tearing this apart to try to find the best plan for white, but what white should do is start getting his pieces developed. Okay, that's really of utmost priority now. Bishop g5, bishop e3, knight bd2, knight can't go to c3 or a3, so any of those moves are reasonable candidate moves to play. Okay, so white plays c3, which is a little slow. And here I really got to give black a lot of credit. Here white has played the anti-marshal to get black out of it, and white looks at this and says, "Hey, I'm going to do the marshal attack anyway." And so a big A for guts and glory. Okay, great move. Going into the marshal anyway. A little bit different, to say the least, but it follows a lot of the same themes. Okay, so now black has sacrificed a pawn, and he has some development for it. And it just, plain and simple, it makes perfectly logical sense. Make white prove that he can defend this. So look at the position for a moment. Both sides have castled, it's true, but black has all three minor pieces out. His queen is ready to develop, and that'll connect the rooks. Look at the white queen side. Completely undeveloped. Not a single queen side piece is moved. And they say that a pawn is worth 3 tempos, and it's going to take 3 tempos for white to develop that queen side. So, and it still won't be done, and it's black's move here. So, black really has, I would say, has got equality here. Now, what white does is kind of surprising. He trades off one of his developed pieces and immediately gives black the bishop pair. So, black's doing fine here. The pawn that he's down really means nothing at this point, simply because white is not developed. And I'm not going to analyze this thing out to the full degree. I don't know if it's by the way, I don't know if this is an over-the-board game or a turn-based game, how much time the players took on their moves. I really have no clue, because the player that submitted this, Navitsam, had not said what it was. He just said it was from a team match, Knight's to Ruy Lopez, so I'm assuming maybe it's a turn-based game. But anyway, got to give black some credit. Now, a5 may not have been necessary, but it's probably not a bad move. I'm just thinking logic. Logic says develop a piece. Okay, put the queen up here to connect the rooks. Okay, that's my first instinct. But the game essentially becomes pretty much even. You could argue one side's a little bit better, the other side's a little bit better. White is a pawn ahead, but black's just got such a free game he can afford to be down a pawn. And again, I'm not going to say what all the better moves were, because black just sits here and hunkers down, digs in, and gives white some fits. Now, black still hasn't developed his queen yet. I'm sorry to see that hasn't happened. I would have been thinking about getting it up to d6 at some point, or maybe d7, so the rooks are connected. That still hasn't happened yet. But then, white's kind of messing around a little bit. He still has 3 pieces sitting at home over there on the queen side. So, okay, so now there's a mate threat black has to deal with. And so maybe this strategy wasn't the best for black, because now he's seen some pieces exchanged off. But still, he's got pretty much close to an even game. And if you're playing black with an even game, you've succeeded, because it takes a mistake from white's part for black to come out ahead, right? Okay. So to some degree now, white is catching up in development. So maybe white's got some chances now if he can get developed, because black hasn't really demonstrated much over the last several moves. All he's done is managed to trade off his queen and his bishop. He might have been wanting to keep those on the board a little bit longer and get those rooks into play, because the rook on a8 is still sitting there. But anyway, white kind of spends time attacking a piece. He still hasn't finished his development over there, and now I really don't know well, the move makes sense. The rook was under attack. But anyway, put a little pressure on. Now finally that guy gets out, and then black decides to develop his queen rook. Okay. And just a little bit of maneuvering along. So, looks like maybe white's doing okay now. Black hasn't really shown much yet, from just the way the middle game transitioned into the early ending stage. We're still in the middle game, by the way. If one more pair of rooks comes off, it's an ending. Okay, but now black gets his pawn back, but then white's going to get one here too. Okay, and but the bishop is still fully the equal of that knight, because the knight's a slow mover. The only thing that white has going for him now is he does have a protected pass pawn on a4, and because of that pass pawn, it has finally developed that rook on a1. That rook is now developed, even though it never moved, because its purpose is to be behind that pawn and get it pushed. But at the same time, black's got some pretty active pieces in the center of the board, and for the moment there's a tempo. There's a tempo on that knight on a5, and now white kind of fumbles a little bit. He's putting a rook on the square that he wants to make a queen on, so eventually that rook's going to have to move again. So you don't want to be defending pieces like this. Okay, but maybe I'm not going deep into it. Maybe the knight move wasn't all that great. But now black just gets the bishop on a good diagonal, kicks the rook, and this is a good move, g4. It restricts all the white pawns. If white pushes either pawn, he's going to have some isolated pawns, and he's going to lose one if black wants, or black can just let it stay weak and collect it later. And certainly white doesn't want to push g3 here and just open up f3 for that bishop to park itself and have to deal with all kinds of disasters on the back rank. But the black rooks are very, very active, and even though the white rooks, you could say they're positioned okay, really they're not. The white rook on a1, even though I said it's developed, there's 2 pieces blocking the pass pawn from advancing. And And that knight on a5 is way over at the side of the board, or side of the board where it doesn't belong. So black's very quickly getting the better position here. And now, finally, the rook comes into the 7th rank. And black's close to winning this right now. White just goes into defensive mode here. Doesn't want to lose a pawn. And if he does lose the pawn, I'm thinking black's probably better here. I'm thinking that b pawn of black's is more dangerous than the a pawn of white's for a lot of reasons. Number one, the white rook is no longer behind the a pawn. He's got a rook in front of the pawn. And the bishop on e4 controls the queening square. So b3 comes. And basically black is now winning. There's no hope. And after rook takes f2, white resigned. He's going to get checkmated here. I think it's basically forced. There's nothing white can do to avoid this. I'm not going to even consider moves like rook takes f7. So what's the lesson here? The lesson is the lesson is black played a great game. Okay, they're not a perfect game. There might have been some ways to improve, get the development going, but just the fact that he pulled a Marshall-style game out of an opening that's designed to prevent it, I have to give a lot of kudos to. Okay, that's great. That's a great job. All right, there'll be another video along shortly. Thanks so much for taking a look at this one. Take care. Thanks.